I'm joined by Kaylee and Lindsay Flanagan. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Very good.
Awesome. You guys are no strangers to being on some of the Stryd media, as you guys have done a podcast episode with us before, and that's been one of the hits. So thanks for taking time out of your busy day, both of you, to
Pretty busy right now. Pretty busy.
Yes. Kaylee, can you give us a brief introduction of who you are, maybe what you do, and then I'll ask the same of Lindsay just to give people a little bit more background about you.
Yeah, I'm Kaylee Flanagan. I'm an elite runner. I live in Boulder, Colorado, training, work at Stryd. So maybe you've emailed in at Support Stryd and maybe had a message back from Kaylee, and that's me. So nice to meet you. But yeah, so I've just been training and moved out here about 2 years ago. So went to the University of Washington for 4 years, graduated, and then I decided to move out to the mountains.
Awesome. And then Lindsay, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Lindsay Flanagan, and I am a professional marathon runner for ASICS, also living in Boulder, Colorado. Also went to the University of Washington, and I think I've been here now for about 3 years.
Awesome. Super cool. So I'll give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, and then we'll kind of have a guided discussion. If anybody's watching right now, you can absolutely drop your questions in the chat in the live stream, as well as if you're watching on Facebook, you can feel free to ask questions there. We will have a video copy of this available afterwards, as well as an audio copy. Kaylee and Lindsay Flanagan, like they mentioned, they're both sisters, endurance runners training out of Boulder, Colorado. They both ran for the University of Washington. What's the thing? Is it Go Dogs or UW? What's the cheer?
Go Dogs!
Go Dogs!
Put your dogs
Dogs. Awesome. Kaylee's a Stryd employee, has logged a great series of road racing results over the last few years. She also is the star behind our social media that's just at about 15,000 followers on Instagram, so feel free to go follow there. Lindsay's a professional runner sponsored by ASICS. She recently ran the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials. She ran the Boston Marathon last year, placed 9th, and last year she also ran the Chicago Marathon and placed 7th there. So we're here to talk about how you should aim to peak during a few selected races with a year of extended base building in that type of period, why this is a time to be aggressive in your goal setting and what kind of aggressive goals you guys are setting, and the implications that this whole situation that we find ourselves in will have for years to come, and how you're finding new routines to grasp on. I guess the first official bit of news that this isn't necessarily on our on our plan, but the Olympics were announced that they're actually postponed and they have a set date, and that bumps back the World Championships the next year as well. So that's something that's on your guys' radar and something that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But the first kind of talking point that I want to address today is how to plan for a single peak. The guiding question we have here is, with most of the important races condensed to the fall, how are you planning your training? We can talk about a couple different things, like, are you aiming for a single peak? Are you aiming to run a bunch of races and just be kind of good at a larger time span of the year? Maybe Lindsay, why don't you start us off first with this kind of guiding question, then Kaylee, you can give any follow-up thoughts that you have.
Yeah, I think we find ourselves in this kind of crazy time right now. I was actually supposed to be in Poland yesterday for the World Half Marathon Championships. So, it's kind of been this really bizarre just time of uncertainty. I ran the Olympic trials, and then, I was planning on just taking a really just short couple days off, and then, trying to kind of keep the fitness for World Half and then take a full break after that. But so I took off Sunday, Monday. I ran Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I woke up Friday morning that week after the trials, and I had an email from USATF, and they just said, it's postponed until October. So in my head, I was like, all right, well, I'm not running the rest of the week. So I took off the rest of the week.
Time to take time off.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, I think as, a professional or anybody can relate to this, after you have a race that you're not really that happy with how it has gone, the next thing is you start planning for your next race. So for me, I was really excited about Poland because I was like, okay, I can put the trials behind me, kind of still carry this fitness over. So that was canceled. That was a bummer. So my next step was, okay, I'm going to run Cherry Blossom. It's an ASIC sponsored race. It's actually would have been this coming weekend. So, immediately I'm already planning for how I can extend the fitness, kind of keep going. And then only to find out, it was a couple days after that race was canceled. So it was one of those things where all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm not going to plan any more races because right now I'm just going to keep getting disappointed as this, just keeps kind of happening. So I, took my little break after the trials. And right now, along with everybody else in the country, I find myself in this situation where I'm probably realistically not going to be able to race until, we're looking at June or July, I think right now. So I spoke with my own coach last week and we kind of were talking like, okay, how are you going to stay sane during this? Because what is structure and workouts and miles. So how are we going to kind of keep you sane, but also keep you, we don't want to overdo anything right now. And how are we going to plan for obviously what you just said, a really big fall, because we're looking at every single big race, I think right now is September through November.
Right.
And so how are we going to kind of approach things? So, right now, and it's something I'm doing with my own athletes I coach through Run Doyen is, we're kind of taking a step back. We're kind of reducing the volume because a lot of people were planning on, they started these marathon buildups in January and everyone was kind of planning on peaking in April. So everyone's had been training quite a lot. And, when you get this news in March that these races are postponed, you've had this huge body of work, the long runs, the workouts. So right now what I'm doing and what my own athletes are doing is we're just kind of taking a step back, cutting the volume by, 20 to 40%, depending on the athlete. It's really not doing those crazy long runs anymore. And we've kind of transitioned from those workouts where we're really into pace and getting, this really huge block of fitness where now we've kind of dialed things back and it's kind of back to those basic workouts that are more effort-based, fartlek, strides, hills. And that's something I'm doing with my own trainer right now. I think I'm doing strides every day just to kind of keep it interesting because I got to mix it up a little bit.
Right.
So I think right now it's important to, like I said, keep the structure for your sanity. I like the workouts. And when I talk to my athletes, it's funny. They tell me, they're like, we don't like the normal runs. We just wish we could do workouts every day. So I think it's good. You want to keep some of those workouts in. They don't have to be crazy intense, but just something to kind of keep that stimulus, keep your legs moving while you're still kind of in this, I guess we can call it really extended base phase right now.
And kind of tailoring the workouts because now we know that there's going to be such a long amount of time until our next race is. Maybe we don't need to work so much on the speed right now, but we can really focus on those areas where maybe we're weaker earlier. We're heading into a goal race, feeling a little iffy, this is kind of flaring up. I know I had an Achilles injury last fall and that took me out for the whole fall. I was planning on using this spring season as just kind of rip the Band-Aid off, get the legs going. I knew I wasn't going to be at my peak fitness, but I was just going to kind of race to fitness. And each race I was going to go in, which isn't always the easiest for us, going in with the mentality that you're going to go just to build more, build more in the legs, build more aerobically. Whereas usually you want to go into a race feeling at your peak. And so I was going to use kind of the spring as that time where I was just going to kind of go out, get the legs moving. But I knew that my Achilles wasn't 100% heading into the spring season. And I was getting kind of a little bummed because I was races are coming up. I need to be ready, need to be fit. And I actually raced at the Gate River, which ended up being pretty much the last race that there was.
It was. You got the last one. I think LA Marathon was.
LA Marathon was the next. Yeah. So that was pretty much the last race. And I knew after that, the Achilles wasn't 100% there, but I was gonna go in with the mentality you know what, I can just keep moving. But that made me take a step back and be okay, I really need to use this time to focus on those areas of weakness. The Achilles isn't going to go anywhere. If I just keep going through it, it's going to keep flaring up. So I really have to use this time to hone in on it, dial in on those specific areas that I can fix in the meantime.
Right.
But yeah, I think that was like the original plan, just heading into the spring season. And obviously things have changed now with races changing and everything, but definitely just using this also as time, like Lindsay said, using this as more like a base phase. So, I mean, really focusing on form through strides or even hill repeats, and just honestly getting a large chunk of just running in. So maybe not focusing as much on workouts, but just knowing like, I can run 75 miles back to back to back to back, or so on. So
per week, not per day.
Yeah. Every day, per day, at least 75.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this a little yesterday. Is just kind of using this time also just to like do some things you typically wouldn't do. Like I have gone on more trail runs in the past 2 weeks than I have probably ever done in my life. And like, I know, Evan, we've trained together before. Like, you know, I am not a trail runner. Like I love to run fast. I love pace. And when you're out on these trails, it's kind of refreshing because you just don't go by that at all. Like I think it was 2 Mondays ago, I went on like, for me, was an epic trail run. And there were points where I was walking like because I couldn't get up the hills, and I was like, this is so fun. Like when have I ever just like taken a step back, went out to the trails, like, you know, took a glorified walk essentially up this like rocky incline. And it's kind of just been refreshing. Like yesterday, we also went on a trail run and it was so muddy from the snow. And it was so fun. We're talking to the mountain bikers. We're like, how muddy is it? Like, am I going to make it up the hill? And I was like, who am I? Like, I never do things like this. So I think, you know, I tell my own athletes this, it's just like, kind of use this time to do things that like when you're in heavy training, you're not really going to have the chance to do. And, you know, I'm a little more paranoid when I'm in heavy training about getting hurt. I don't want to fall like down the trails. Whereas right now it's a little more lenient. It's okay. So I think we're using this time to also just kind of have fun with running. I think when we're gearing up for these big races, you know I get, you know, I stress about like the little things. I'm really into workouts. I constantly am worried about how I'm going to feel the next day. But now it's like, okay, if I want to go do some strength circuit that's going to make me really sore, that's okay, because tomorrow, like, I don't really have to hammer. I don't have anything I need to be ready for. So
and also just taking kind of a break from the track, like getting on the track, going to the track and doing workouts. It can be brutally honest. Like you can go out there, peak fitness, not peak fitness. Like the track doesn't lie.
It never lies. Never.
I think at this time, kind of like taking a step back from even going to the track, or I mean, if you do want to keep doing track workouts, more power to you, but also just focusing, like Lindsay said, more on like fartlek efforts, or even just heading to the trails, because those in general are so going to just be like strong base running. I mean, you're going to get like ankle mobility by like going over rocky terrain and like really focusing on other weaknesses too. So I think if you can kind of transition off the roads and be fine on the trails, like that's going to kind of be beneficial for us heading into the fall season. So
yeah, awesome. I want to, we have a listener question already, but before I ask this, I want to follow up on something that Lindsay, you said. So you said you were going to run the World Half Marathon Championships in Poland. People might not be aware that there is such a thing. Can you tell us how you qualified for that and what that is?
Yeah, so it was going to be yesterday in Poland, and how it kind of worked was the qualifying window for USATF was from September 2019 through, I want to say it was February 1st of this year. So they just did descending order, top 5 fastest times. I ran 69:37 in Houston, which put me in that top 5. So I was set to go. And for me, I think anytime you have the chance to represent your country, that's just such an amazing experience. So I knew that, you know, from the trials to World Half, that was going to be, you know, that's a pretty quick turnaround. It's only 4 weeks, and it's something I hadn't done before, but I was really looking forward to it. And, you know, it's something that they have, I think, I want to say now it's October, I want to say 16th or 17th, along with every race. It's right around that time. So it's one of those things where I'm kind of just taking it, well, day by day, week by week. And, you know, it's something I still do want to run in October, but it will just now, you know, with all the marathons now, we've got all of the world majors right in that bubble. It'll be kind of trying to figure out if I can do it and, you know, kind of plan from there.
Right.
And I think it's nice because she would have been ready in 4 weeks. But I mean, post trials, like if any marathoners are out there, like, you need to recover hard from that. And so I think you would have totally been ready 4 weeks later. But also now that you have this time where you can actually fully recover from the marathon was huge. Just building back into like the fall and even making that as a goal race for the fall.
And Kaylee, I want to ask you a follow-up about what you were talking about of you said your Achilles had kind of been like a little angry, and you ran you said Gate River, but it's the US 15-kilometer championship. So you ran in a 15K championship race. How would you maybe suggest to people who are maybe in the same boat of somebody that, had kind of been towing the line, they were kind of borderline right on having, their legs maybe get a little cranky with them? What's some of the mentality that you're using going forward and reassessing this kind of period that you can maybe take advantage of not having to have a deadline of, you have to race, you have to do these hard efforts?
Yeah, so I think after the injury in the winter and the fall of last year, and then heading into winter this year and kind of heading into the spring season, I put a lot of pressure on myself just to be back, to be ready. I knew that the injury had cost me a lot in the fall, and I was okay. Like, this is my year. I'm going to make it happen. And I think just that added pressure, also like heading to the line, knowing you're not at your peak fitness, can be really tough and challenging to deal with. But now that I have this extensive amount of time, I can just like find the joy of running again, because I think I lost that a lot when I was injured and I was on the bike, I was on the elliptical, I was in the pool. Like, cross training isn't fun. I mean, we all know that. Like, we're all runners. We all want to be running. Like, we're not training to be like, I'm not training to be a swimmer right now. But so I think I'm just using this time, honestly, to find that passion again. And it's been really fun to just like change things up. Like we said, with the trails, or just going on like different routes that we wouldn't normally go on. And also just using this time to, like I said earlier, focus on how I can actually heal the Achilles. So it's been healed, been running, but obviously a lot of strength still goes into that. So definitely like working with PTs from afar due to the situation, but trying to figure out how to get back to my most potential, or kind of just keep building through that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think anyone that's dealing with any sort of like injury or pain, and I know I'm doing this with my own athletes, is, we love to race. So we're always like trying to manage these little, injuries while still doing workouts and maintaining our, big volume. But now this is the time. It's great. Like, you don't have to be doing workouts. You don't have to be crushing. So I think taking this time and just getting yourself really healthy so you can crush in the fall is great. Kind of what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to touch on a couple of the questions that we have so far. And I just want to remind people that if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on the YouTube live stream. Natalie Dorset says, it's a two-part question, but kind of the same thing. So she says, so not back to complete base building. And this was referring to kind of what you guys are both talking about, of how you transition, what your focus was. And then she also says, is it fair to say you're doing base training with strength running workouts thrown into the mix?
That is spot on what
that is exactly
we're doing. Like, I think last week was kind of like my first workout since the trials. And it was like, those 5-minute efforts with like a little float in the middle. So you want to keep, we know what we know is working out. We love workouts. So keeping those workouts in there, but don't feel the pressure to be, get on the track, crush the 400-meter repeats at like half marathon, 10K, that you just don't need to do that right now. Because realistically, I've done this before where, I've tried to hold on to a peak for a really long time and crushed for like 8 months straight. And I'm so tired by the time like that goal race comes sometimes, because I've just overdone it. So this is kind of a perfect time to just mentally, physically reset and, use this time, keep getting stronger, but then hold off for those, race specific workouts until, if you're running a Boston, we're looking at more starting that build up, July or June.
And I think also just recognizing that if you are a marathon trainer, your long run is going to be, a long run. So you don't need to quite hit those extremely long runs. You don't need to hit that fatigue right now. You can still run a long run, but maybe like don't max out at the long run, or just really, what did we say earlier? Like 30%?
Yeah, scaling it back. Like, I mean, in a marathon buildup, I'm typically doing 20, 22 miles every week. I think yesterday it was my longest run since the trials. I think it was 15.
It was 15.
15. And so I think now, even I looked at my training this week again, it's like a 14, 15 mile run. So scaling it back, like, but still getting that stimulus. I mean, you're still out there for 100 minutes. So still a solid run.
Awesome. I do want to touch on one point of the term base training gets thrown around a lot, and it means different things to different people. But for you guys being on the elite side of the sport, where you have to be at your absolute fastest and you're still aiming for PRs ideally every time you go out there, what does base training mean to you? Because it's not just easy, slow running at a very low volume. It is a specific type of structure, I imagine.
Yeah, for me, it's all about like building the foundation for what I'm going to do later in the fall. So, someone that is running Boston or really any marathon, it comes down to strength, and it comes down to how long can you push without your body breaking down. So for me, the base is about building strength. Like, I'm not looking to, I still want to keep the strides and I want to keep my turnover there, but base for me is about building strength and not speed. So for me, strength comes from, tempos and fartleks and different things like that, hitting the trails, getting on like, the hilly terrain. I've even recognized, I'm way sore today doing that 15-mile run on the trail than I ever am when I go and do the 22-mile like pace run. So for me, base is all about building the strength and the foundation just so I can handle the miles and that, big workload come July when I am gearing up for my marathon.
And I think it's also that like consistency week after week, just like having a consistent month after month training. So maybe it is just like building miles for about like 3 months, but also like incorporating some workouts, some hills, some strides. But yeah, I would say like consistency is the key to base training. And you can even see that between just across years, like when you look back at your past training and you're like, oh, like last fall, this is what I was doing, but that all sets you up for your races to come. So like next fall, we're already focusing like, how can we use this fall to go into next fall, and so on and so forth. So
it's always building on top of what you've done before.
So I guess all of running is just a big base phase.
Right. I want to ask a question here from Tito, and this is something you guys touched on, but I want to talk about this in terms of percentages. So Lindsay, you coach people, so you've probably been giving this advice out to athletes that you coach. What is a healthy volume per week to target during a marathon training pause like this one? And he says, thanks for all the insights. So you mentioned like a type of percentage and stuff, but what's a healthy volume per week for somebody to still be training for a future marathon, but maybe that training's put on pause for right now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the athletes I coach run probably 5 or 6 days a week, and we're looking at, a lot of people are in that 50 to 60 mile range. So right now we've kind of reduced, I'd say we're at probably, if they were running 60 before, they're more in that 40, 45 miles. And they're, like, man, I feel really fresh. Like, I just want to race so bad right now. And it's funny because you look and you're like, well, you only cut back 15 miles, but that is still significant where, I've had some people that just because they can, they, naturally just do this progressive long run. I had an athlete he ended at, half marathon or 10K pace for his 10-mile long run. He's like, I just feel so fresh. So that's kind of what we want. We want you to reduce the volume, feel fresh, but in reality, 45 is still a really solid amount of miles if your max is 60. So I'm not sure. I don't even know how much is that, like a 20% decrease?
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
So I think don't stress about, oh my gosh, I need to reduce by this much, but more like recognize I need to back off, but you can still kind of keep,
Yeah. And I think she had even said that some of her athletes were running like 6 days a week, but then she like normally heading into a big race, but now like there isn't any races for a while. So maybe like cutting it down to only 5 days a week. So maybe like taking out a day or adding in more cross training.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this next question from Rosa actually is completely great talking about cross training. Is running in place in a pool a good workout for a runner? So maybe somebody considers themselves a runner and not a swimmer, and they feel like they're floundering all over the place when they try and swim. What do you guys think about pool running? And maybe do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, so I would say I used aqua jogging a ton when I was coming back from injury. It's been really helpful, just no impact at all, and really it just makes the legs feel better. So if you have like a really tough bike session in the morning, head in the pool afterwards, you can kind of just like flush out the legs a little. I recommend using the belt. If I don't use the belt, I'm pretty much just kind of flailing in the water. So I would say the belt is a huge one if you have access to it. If you don't have access to it, that's totally fine. It's all about just like getting up the heart rate. So if you feel like, oh, my heart rate's getting up, then you're perfect. Like that's exactly what you want. So
and pool running's nice because, I mean, I've used it when I've got an injury. I mean, there was like, a 2-month span where all I was in the pool, and, you can replicate some pretty hard workouts in the water, just like something so simple that you can do just like a minute on, minute off. Like, and the time goes by super fast. If you do 10 times a minute on and off with a little baby warm up and cool down in there, I mean, you're already looking at a 45-minute workout. So yeah, I'm even like when I'm healthy, I'm in the pool at least once a week.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's variety to the training. And right now, people's rec centers or pools are probably not open, but it might be something that people would consider if, their resources around them open up a little bit. One more listener question before we go to the next subject we're going to talk about, how to mix strength workouts and hill workouts. If I didn't have hill workouts before and I do 2 strength workouts per week, now I want to add hill workouts. How should I adjust the strength work? And this is from our friend Kun Lee.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to kind of start incorporating hills, something that's not over the top, is start with 8 to 10 by 15-second hill sprints. And then you just walk back down the hill for recovery. And this is something that is going to build power and speed. And it's something that you can do hill sprints, even the day before you go and do a tempo run, because it's just this quick, explosive kind of mini workout, I call it. So I think if you were going to start, maybe, say you're doing like a tempo or a hard workout on Tuesday, you've got like a medium or, another run Wednesday. Thursday, maybe you do your easy run and you end with 6 times 10 or 15-second sprints up the hill. And it's just something like explosive power, and you can still maintain those 2 strength workouts a week. And then eventually kind of transition to maybe you keep your fartlek tempo one day, but then the next, maybe your Friday session now becomes, maybe 3 sets of 45-second hill, 30-second hill, 20-second hill. So just like kind of little things, just gradually kind of incorporating the hills. You don't need to go for 10 by 3 minutes up a hill right now. That's a little extreme, but just those quick explosive ones are good for right now.
Awesome. Kaylee, did you have any input on incorporating hills?
Yeah, I mean, I would say exactly pretty much what Lindsay said. The long runs over hills. I think anytime you can just get in a solid amount of time, not focusing on pace or power or anything, and just going over the hills, and just really working on like those strength runs right now, at least during the base phase. And even like we incorporate these in like heading into a big race. I usually always have like a Wednesday medium length run, and that's always focusing more on like the strength aspect. So not really like focusing on anything else besides just like powering over the hills. So
So if you don't want to go do hill repeats, just doing a long run over hills. Like yesterday, it was funny. We like looked at the elevation gain after. We're like, man, like I gained like 900 feet, which like for context is more than you would gain all of the Boston Marathon. And so you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize this. And that's a great way to just do it, like, the hill strength without having to do hill repeats.
Awesome. Yeah, no, super good advice. I want to move on to a slight tangent of how to modify a training schedule in a practical way. So let's say somebody's goal race, Lindsay, like you mentioned, was going to be in April. So like, let's say somebody's running a marathon in the middle of April, and now all of a sudden it's been shifted to September or October because it's been postponed. What would be a practical way to extend the training block in a easy to manage month by month breakdown. So maybe give me what March and April look like, what May and June look like, July and August, and then September, October.
Yeah. So what I've done myself and my athletes is we've all taken we called it like a mini recovery break, where it was 2 weeks of, again, if you're running 6 days a week, we were maybe running 4 or 5, and we really slashed the volume. So I think this was a very recent development. I want to say in the last 2 weeks, we found out all these races were postponed. So for April, we're just going to be working on, keeping, the volume there, not the highest, keeping those strength workouts in, and then kind of doing that in May too. April and May are going to be a lot of just about the consistent, the volume, still mixing it up with a few workouts. And then, we get into June, and if you're running a Boston, you're looking at June, July, August, September, you're looking at, that's when the marathon buildup is going to start again. So, you have this huge, base that you've put in because you've been training since January because you thought you were going to race. So now that's when we're going to shift back over to, we do a lot of, race specific paces. So it's going to be a lot of getting back into that. You can finally start bringing the long runs back up again, because you can't be doing these 20-mile runs all of, April and May, because you're just going to be so tired. So that's when you can start getting back into the bigger volume. And even myself, if I'm targeting a September marathon, June is when I'm going to start getting in the big bulk of work again.
Right. Awesome. And then Kaylee, what would you say maybe you're not going to run a marathon? Let's say you're prepping for a half. Does the preparation look the same way, or what would the training schedule maybe adjust in that way?
Yeah, so I think that the preparation is pretty much just very similar if you're going to run the half, the full. I think also there's been a lot of talk virtual races, which I think are really fun right now, because say it's really hard to get out there, put yourself to the test, but joining just these virtual runs. And I mean, if you're going to run a half, you need to have that speed too and that turnover. So maybe hopping in a virtual 5K. I mean, we're not really sure what the exact race schedule is going to look like come May and June. Hopefully we're hoping by June it will be maybe some races will start popping up. And if that does become possible, definitely hopping in a 5K then will be a great way just to check the fitness, get that speed back in the legs before doing 10Ks throughout the summer and then a half in the fall.
Yeah. Awesome. I think, like how I said, you're going to start your build up, those more strength building workups in June. If you're going to gear up for a half, that's the time you want to start getting in those fast, fast repeats. You can start doing 10K pace, because in reality, the faster you get, the 10K, the faster that half's going to be. So I think if you're gearing up for a half in the fall, you want to start the solid speed work again in June.
Yeah. Right. There's no reason to get too after the speed right now. So
we got time.
We got some time.
Got a little bit of time. What about topic number 2 we have here is more aggressive goal setting. And I find this super interesting because if people were relegated to the mindset of they had to start training in January for an April or May race, now all of a sudden they have months more of real estate to actually gain fitness. And they could gain the same amount of fitness without having to try and cram it in and having a higher risk of injury. So they might be able to now reach a higher level of performance this fall than they would have thought possible, because there's less of a risk of injury, there's more time to train, but there's less pressure, which might mentally help them. So I want to ask you guys about what you think about more aggressive goal setting and how somebody can practically take a goal that they had in the spring and adjust it to be slightly more aggressive for the fall. And aggressive doesn't mean mean or bad. It means just a higher level of performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talk about this with my own athletes. If a lot of them were looking to maybe Boston qualify this April, they simply just wanted to qualify. But, that's just, you extend what they've done now. If you're looking at not running this marathon now till September, they can run more miles, get in more workouts. They have this huge, just like we said, the base that now maybe come September or the next marathon, it's not just hitting their Boston qualifying mark. It's, I want to, beat that Boston qualifying mark by 5 to 7 minutes. And I think that's very realistic. If you have just had this huge block of uninterrupted training, you've run more than you've ever run, your workouts are, naturally just going to get faster because you're going to be stronger. I think that we are going to see a lot of these, people are going to blow their expectations away because you've had so much time to prepare that, now the goal isn't just to Boston qualify. It's to make sure you're actually, because now we're seeing you have to run faster to just even get into Boston. We're going to see people, running, 7-8 minutes faster than, their Boston qualifying mark that they were planning on doing this spring. So, and this is something even in my own running, I'm looking at, okay, if I have like this huge, just amount of time to get really strong, like that in my mind, I'm already thinking, okay, maybe the PRs that, I was hoping for, I'm going to run even faster than that.
Yeah.
Or I think we're also going to see, because like we said, there's so many races now, from September to probably December, that we're going to see people doing things that we wouldn't typically see. Like maybe people will be running, even a lot of my own athletes were planning on doing Boston, and they were going to run Chicago in the fall because they were grandfathered in. So we're going to see a lot of people now running 2 marathons in 6 weeks, and kind of just, I think it's cool because we're going to be seeing some things that's so rare to see that. And so now we're going to see people running a marathon. Maybe 2 weeks later, they're going to run a half, 2 marathons in 2 months. I think that it's cool because we're going to kind of see that the body's capable of a lot more than maybe we put limits on when we're on this, structured plan typically. So I think the fall's going to be crazy. I was talking to my agent, and I think I can't remember what weekend it is, but there's like 10 gold label races on the same exact day, like October. And that's just something you're never going to see. So I think people are also going to be just like kind of finally let loose, that we're going to see some huge performances and just huge PRs that just by the sheer just excitement to finally get to race again.
Right.
Yeah, I would say the same, just like the excitement of getting back out there. I mean, even if you're coming back from an injury now and you thought like your entire spring, summer was going to be over, well, now you can just use this time again to like get yourself back into fitness, and come fall, like I think those huge PRs are going to come. And I think we're going to, like Lindsay said, see things that we've never seen before. I think records will be broken because we're all just so excited to get back out there and show all this fitness that we've been gaining in this time off, and kind of just showing like, no, I've been working hard. Like this is what I've been working towards. And now that we have maybe we have a little bit more time now, just to we're not really traveling anywhere, so just kind of like can't travel anywhere. So maybe we're recovering a little bit more. I mean, after your runs, like sitting down on your couch and busting out your work for the day. So I think also just like there's going to be some really exciting things come the fall.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to branch off of that topic slightly and ask you guys about your own specific goals. So first, can you start off by, Kaylee, if you would like to go first, telling us what your personal records are at different distances. So I know you're aiming for the longer stuff now, but you had a good history in college and stuff. And then Lindsay, if you can answer the same question, just what your current personal records are, and then we'll talk about your own aggressive goal setting.
Yeah, definitely. So on the track in college in the 10K, ran 33:43, and I knew that the 5K I liked, but the 10K was really just where my passion was. Kind of just like the longer but the faster. Really like the endurance. So this last fall, I decided, you know what, like why not just go for a half? So I really like the distance of the half, because the full, it's a big commitment, but the half, like I think I still have the speed there to get it done and get done properly. So the first half was really exciting. It was my hometown in Chicago, Illinois. It was the rock and roll half. I suggest everyone do it. It's very fun.
Hometown.
But yeah, I got to win there. And honestly, that was super exciting, regardless of like the time and everything, just getting the first run out there for that. And then hoping looking forward to this fall, I hope to do like some more halves and 10Ks. But definitely like, I don't know if I'm quite ready for the marathon this fall, just coming back from injury last year, but definitely want to work on the half.
And you won your first half marathon too in your hometown.
I did. So it was the hometown energy that really got me through it. So.
Right. And then, Lindsay, you're a professional runner sponsored by ASICS. Can you tell us your PRs?
Yeah, so my half marathon PR is from Houston just this past January. That was 69:37. And last year at Chicago Marathon, I ran 2:28:08, I want to say. And it's been a long time since I've run a 10K, but I will think my track 10K from 5 years ago is 32:22.
Yeah.
So, so I was really looking forward to the summer to getting faster. And, I think that it was, my half PR in January was totally unexpected. I PR'd by 3 minutes while in the middle of marathon training. So I think a big goal I had was, and I still do is, I know I can run faster than I did that day. And I think also now that I've seen I can, run that fast and a half, that just my expectations for what I can do in the marathon now are, they're changed. And, last year when I ran Chicago, I felt I was ready to run 2:26 and it didn't happen on the day, but the goal hasn't changed. The goal is still to run that. But like you were saying, like we're kind of tweaking our goals and making them more aggressive where, I'm talking to my coach and he's saying, I don't see why you can't run, 2:25. Like that's totally realistic. So I think looking at my fall now, I'm not sure, which marathon I'm going to choose, but, I want to run fast. And, last year I was 7th in Chicago, 9th in Boston. And, having the top 10 finishes at the World Major was super exciting. So, no matter where I go this fall, I want to be, again, more aggressive and I want to place higher than I did last year. So I think time and performance, just goals in general right now.
Awesome. I'm curious, and I know people listening probably are as well. So from the elite side of the sport, you don't necessarily have to enter the lottery for a race and just cross your fingers and hope because you've run the qualifying time.
Yeah.
You guys get invited and you reach out to these races and you pretty much have your pick of what race will just fit in your schedule and what maybe plays to your abilities as well. So maybe Lindsay, if you can talk first about how would a professional marathoner, what are all those aspects of considering a race to do? Because you have an agent, you have a coach, then you have all these other races that you could go to one of 5 races between September and November and be totally fine. But what does that kind of look like from the elite side?
Yeah, I think right now, like I said, all of a sudden we have Boston and London that are now in the fall. That never happens. So it's a lot to think about right now. Even it's only March, but I'm having a conversation with my agent last week. Like, we got to start thinking about the fall. Like, what do you want to accomplish? Like, what are we looking at? And I think you touched on this a little bit earlier. You said that now the World Championships have now been pushed back to 2022, which, a big part of kind of what I was already planning on this fall is how our team is chosen is going to be a descending order, fastest times list. But now, if you were looking at, I had to crush a really fast time this fall, now you technically don't until next year because that's when the qualifying is going to be. So that kind of changes, my own, and I'm sure a lot of people's mentality of where they're going to go this fall and maybe what the plan is. And, I love Boston. I had a great experience there last year, and it's really tempting to want to go back there now too. And so I think, it's something I'm going to have to keep thinking about. Like I kind of said, I also, the World Half is still on the radar to try and do that. And I think a lot of people are going to try and do kind of more than one race. Like I even saw Des was already saying, maybe I can run Boston and New York. So I think we're going to see a lot of people maybe going for that earlier date, a Boston and then a Berlin, and then maybe try to do a New York later on. So so I think I have a lot to think about right now, which is exciting, but I also know that it's so uncertain right now. And every time I've been planning on a race, it kind of keeps getting pushed back. So I think taking it day by day and I feel grateful to be in the position to have a lot to choose from.
Yeah, and I think the good thing right now is you don't have to have that set plan. Like things are changing, so we need to just be mindful of that. And we can always change our expectations, and definitely working on how we can change our mindset when things do change, because we've been seeing that over the last few weeks. So.
Totally. I want to ask a couple listener questions that trickled in, and then we'll go to the third topic here. So this question that is actually maybe kind of related to aggressive goal setting. If people don't normally do strength training and now they find themselves with a bunch of time to incorporate stuff, because the excuse is always, I'm marathon training. I have to focus on my long run. I can't be sore. So for people who no longer have access to workout equipment due to gym closures, do you have any at-home strength training advice for runners during this situation? This is from Colby Mayman.
Yeah, I would say honestly, all you need is a yoga ball, some bands, and something heavy you can find in the area. Like we've been using a big thing of laundry
We
detergent.
were squatting laundry.
I filled up the laundry basket with like a lot of items and was like lifting that. So honestly, just being creative and like we can laugh at like the things we're doing in this time. But I would say like, yeah, we definitely have bought just like a bunch of bands, and those are even really helpful. Just for hip exercises, you can do so much with those too. Like there's videos out there everywhere. So
what do you mean by bands? Can you tell me more about that?
So I actually just went on Amazon and like just bought, I mean, all the workout equipment is dwindling, so get on it. But you can get like different kind of strength size, like resistance bands, like that smaller. Sometimes they're like the harder. So really, you know, my last couple of marathons, I've been lifting heavier than I ever have. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh no, I can't like go to the gym anymore. Like I'm going to get so weak. But so I bought these, you know, strength bands, and I am so sore from what I'm doing from these exercises compared to like, you know, me being in the gym doing like, you know, the squats. And so I think that just shows that you can be really dynamic and versatile right now in your strength training. So yeah, like get creative. Molly Huddles had these great, like these Instagram videos of her doing some of her band work. And I just gone on and kind of looked at what she's done. And I did some of the workout, like, you know, exercises. I'm really sore. And so I think like, don't feel like you have to be in the gym with all these weights to get stronger, because there's so many different ways you can. And we bought one of the, I think it's like $20 to buy one of those, you know, big, like I think you're like the yoga balls, and you can do, you know, core on those and mountain climbers and just so many different things that, just be creative and get on Amazon and just get a few little pieces.
While it's still in stock.
While they're still there. Follow-up question that actually is really good to branch off that. How many times a week would you spend on a focused core workout during this base training? And this is from Ravender Dang.
Yeah. So typically, you know, in a marathon or when you're training hard, you know, people, again, they don't like to be sore, and because, you know, you want to just focus on your legs. So right now, if you could get in, you know, three days of solid core work, like if that's, you know, using bands, using the yoga ball, using what you have, I think three days is great, because the stronger you can get your core, you know, you're just going to be so much more efficient when you're running, and that's just going to set you up for, you know, even bigger PRs this fall. So if you have the time, which I think a lot of us do right now, if you can spend, even if it's only 10 minutes, 3 times a week, that is huge. And that's just going to be something that hopefully once this is over, you'll kind of already be in the habit, and you'll just keep doing it and just keep getting stronger.
Yeah, this is a great time to like build those good habits.
Good habits.
So you can stretch
strong
now.
core.
Yeah, strong core, stretching, strength. Like honestly, you can just use this into the fall even.
Awesome. Can you guys give me an example of one accomplishable thing that you would add in terms of like strength or core or like an exercise like this? So maybe to give the people watching or listening one thing that they can add that they're maybe not doing right now.
Yeah, so I really like the Russian twist with something semi-heavy. So if you have like, I don't know, laundry detergent, or you do have like a 5-pound weight, definitely I find that is like a super helpful, getting in those like 3 times 30. I find that super beneficial.
Awesome.
Yeah. And for me, I think like, I mean, a lot of people probably aren't like, you know, doing squats every single week, but it's so good for, you know, glutes, hamstrings. So even just body weight squats, you know, 3 sets of 10, and there you go. Boom. If you have a resistance band, you can kind of put around you to make it harder. That's great. But starting with these really simple exercises that we just kind of neglect when we're tired is going to be huge. So yeah, for me, it's even the body weight squats, or we've been doing a lot of at-home yoga, because I don't stretch anymore. I've totally just kind of like eliminated that from my routine, and which is, I guess, probably not great, but so we've been doing a lot more at-home yoga, and maybe they're like these 15-20 minute videos that are really not long at all. But again, it's just something like kind of breaks up the day, and, you know, getting more flexible is always good, you know, just more mobility.
Stretching.
Just little things.
Awesome. I have a couple questions before we go to the third topic here. Hi, Kaylee and Lindsay. Do you guys practice nutrition during training? If so, what nutrition products do you use? What's your favorite race day / post-workout food? And this from Sakiko Minagawa.
Yeah. So right now we love Garden of Life. So I think no matter what, if I'm training hard or, even in this like base phase right now, I always finish a run with some sort of protein powder, some sort of smoothie. It's getting warmer, so the smoothies are a big hit right now.
Right.
So that's pretty big. And then when it comes to, marathon fueling, that's huge. And I use Stryd products, and they have a great hydration drink. I use this in the trials. I've used it in like the past 3 or 4 marathons I've run, and just sticking with something like that. The hydration is huge, and everybody has something else, a specific thing that they like. But for me, Stryd has been great, and I highly recommend everyone give it a try.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then what about yourself, Kaylee? As somebody that hasn't done a marathon yet, you still practice that during
so I
now.
still practice fueling. Not really right now, just because I'm not running as long, but I still think that when you're out there for 90 minutes or more, you need to start just restoring that, getting up the carbs and everything. So I use some of Lindsay's Stryd, and I think it's great. There's a green apple one, tastes awesome. So I've even taken the juice during runs. So definitely any way to help myself during a long run recover into the next week. So it's kind of hard to go from like a hard Sunday long run into a Tuesday workout. So I find that if I fuel during the long run, I actually feel better on Tuesday and more recovered for that. So really any way you can just actively start recovering earlier.
Yeah, and this is the time too that people can kind of practice that nutrition mid-run. Like you don't, for these like really intense workouts, you don't want to be out there with like a stomach ache, but just trying something new right now. I mean, try a different flavor of goo. Try the caramel macchiato. It's actually pretty good. We'll work it up for a lot of the run. But just trying some funny like things now is again, just keep it interesting, keep it fun. Yeah.
Sure. And then favorite race day / post workout food.
Ooh, race day, definitely oatmeal. Yeah, super bland, but oatmeal.
Like post race food.
Oh,
yeah, not even
post-race. No. That is the time to treat yourself.
I'm big into brunch. I love brunch. So if I can have French toast or pancakes, it was like immediately after Houston half, I went out to brunch with my best friend. It was just a big thing of pancakes, and that's like all I want is just some carbs and something delicious. And then later in the day,
definitely some ice cream or something.
Ice cream, or if you have, I think right after the trials, we just went out for. It was kind of funny. It was just like German food, but it was like pretzels and beer, just like salty and beer, and it was perfect.
It's a good celebration.
What's better? Right. Awesome. One more question before we go to the third points. How do you recover after a hard effort? So besides pretzels and beer, I ran a solo marathon time trial in 3:27 on Sunday. Wow. It was the first one. It was their first one. How long would you rest as they still feel good? And it's from Agogo Odudu.
So, I mean, kind of like how I was going to do after the trials, I was only going to take a couple of days, but that's a really impressive marathon to do solo. So I would say, kind of how I approach it is like, you want to feel good, a couple months from now too. So still recognizing I just ran this really great, amazing, hard effort. So taking at least, 2 days off would be most ideal, even if you're feeling good. And then really just the rest of the week, active recovery, where maybe you're only going for just like easy walks or 3-mile jogs, like shakeouts, that's really big. Getting in the Epsom salt bath, if you can, just like, I know a lot of people can't go. Actually, no one really can go for massage right now because they're all closed. So anything you can kind of do to kind of help your body recover is really big. Maybe it's cycling instead. We just bought a new elliptigo tire. Just finding different cross training to do in the meantime is good.
Right. Awesome. And then Kaylee, how would you say maybe how you would specifically recover after a hard effort in training? So we can focus on racing and recovering from that, but I feel like we always have this built-in time around a race where you say, okay, I know I'm going to consciously recover. What about a hard workout? Like you mentioned, you do a Sunday long run, then you have to come back and do a Tuesday workout. What does that kind of recovery look like?
Yeah, so I think that the Monday run is crucial in doing that to the best of its ability, which means just taking it easy. So I think really making sure that on those easy runs, even if you're running I don't know, 8:30 pace, but in the workouts, you're running 5:45 pace, like just making sure that you're actively recovering and even if you want to break those up into 2 runs. So say you had a really hard run on Sunday, you want to wake up in the morning, do like 3 miles just as like a flush out the legs. And then even later on in the afternoon, if you went for your double, maybe you would find that your legs were ready to run maybe like a little bit quicker or get some strides in towards the end, just to like really just get the body prepared for a Tuesday workout. Right. So making sure that you're taking those hard runs, but then also using the easy runs to recover for the harder runs to come.
Awesome. Great advice. We're going to go on to the third topic here. I want to encourage anybody that has other questions, put them in the chat now, because now's your last chance to ask questions. Topic number 3 is, what is the future of running? What are the long-term effects that this current situation will have on the running world? Do you guys think pros or amateurs will race less often? Do you think virtual runs will get more popular? Are you discovering new routines or techniques that will help you for the future? Maybe just talk about your guys' general thoughts on the future of running.
Yeah, so I think we were even talking on how awesome it is. Like, you look out the window and you see everyone's out there being active. Like, I even know our family who's not really into running. Like, they're out there putting on the running shoes. They do not run. Like, after it. So I think that all these races come fall are going to be just completely sold out. I think that people that weren't even really considered themselves runners in the past are now going to be like, oh, I put in all this work over the last few months. Like, I want to give it a go. So I think it's honestly a really exciting time, just knowing that there are so many possibilities come fall season, and just knowing like the opportunities ahead. So
yeah, and I think just like we kind of said, like, no one can go to the gym right now. The thing that everyone is doing is running, and so we've kind of seen this, like, running is really addicting, because you start, and, you can start like you've never run before, but you're naturally just gonna get better, like, the more you run. So I think we're gonna see just this huge running boom. And I've read about this a lot, where just like all these people that never considered themselves runners, there are runners. And I think we're gonna see the races are going to be sold out. Like, I just think we're going to see new races popping up, and just like, I think obviously it stinks right now, and it's really hard to not have these races, but long term, I think this is going to be great for the running community. And, I think people are going to be healthier, and we're just going to see way more runners than ever before.
And I think even with the pros, like, I think you're going to see records go down. I think you're going to see like a new marathon, like, world record. So I don't know. It's an exciting time, just knowing that we have all these bases and everyone's really excited for the first opportunity to come. Like, people are going to jump on it. So, and just not taking, I think this also opened our eyes to not taking things to our like advantage, like not taking things for granted, and knowing that each race could be your last race for a while. So really just heading into every race, just being grateful you're on the starting line, putting your best effort forward.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great advice. So we wrote 3 questions ahead of time that I want to ask, and then remind people, if you have any other questions, please drop them in the chat before we finish here. Number 1 question is, what is your motivation during this time? How are you staying motivated and excited about training during this time period?
Yeah, I think, like, at the end of the day, my big goal is always just, in motivation for running, is I want to see how good I can be. So right now, like, I'm going to use this time, and, I'm going to get stronger. And again, like, my big goal and motivation doesn't change, is I still want to see how good I can be, and how good can I be now that I've had this, extensive time to just better myself mentally and physically.
Yeah, and I think even looking in the past and seeing how, like, the success that other runners have had after big breaks of periods of time off have had, like, I mean, Des wins Boston after taking a break, and like Kaylee Flanagan wins New York City after an injury. So, I mean, we all deal with little setbacks, but just seeing how we can use this as our motivation going into the fall, or going into like next year racing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Is this like anything you have encountered before? Does this situation remind you of any past scenarios where you have been in with extended layoffs, either, summer training in high school and not having to be in school and do cross-country practice, or having an injury?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I spent all of 2017 and half of 2018 just incredibly injured, and I didn't race at all. And it was one of those things, when I started racing again, I was pretty rusty, and it took a little bit to get back into it. But then I was running times faster than I ever had before. So maybe don't look at this as like a bad thing, but sometimes when we have, you know, this chunk of time where we don't race, it ends up actually being really beneficial for us, you know, down the line.
Yeah.
And I would say this kind of reminds me of collegiate running. So you're on a very strict schedule when it comes to collegiate racing. And we honestly would take pretty much, if you didn't make it to NCAAs and track season, you would spend like May, June, July, August just running, just getting mileage in. So this is kind of, and like you would have your best races come like cross country season. Like you need to be your best in November. So this is kind of a very similar timeline. Obviously very different timeline, but yeah, definitely like I can see like in the past, we still had success after taking like just months of just running.
Right. And then last one here is connecting with the running community. So for Lindsay, because you're a professional runner sponsored by ASICS, and you also have people that you coach, and you know, you've run very, very fast, very, very recently. Since your racing opportunities are limited, how are you planning on staying in contact with your fans and supporters? And then I think this speaks for all runners. How are you guys just staying involved in the running community? Like you mentioned, looking at other people's Instagram stories and seeing the exercises they're doing, or coming on a great webinar series, you know, and staying connected with people. But what are your guys' general thoughts on staying connected with the running community when we can't run within 6 feet of each other, but we can obviously still feel more connected at this time?
Yeah, I think like even with my own athletes, like I talk to, you know, everybody's really busy and doesn't have the time to, you know, check in and chat with me. But last week I talked to, you know, more of them than I have in a really long time. And, you know, one of my athletes, I think by the time it was all said and done, we didn't even talk about running once. Like we just talked about life, because I think everyone's cooped up and, you know, mental health is huge. So I think just staying connected to, you know, my own athletes and realizing like we're people at the end of the day, also not just runners. So it's been really nice to just kind of, you know, take a step back and reconnect with them. We all have a lot more time than we ever have before, and just like checking in on each other as not just athletes, but people, and just really seeing how we're all doing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, yeah, just like staying socially connected to everyone. So even though you have to be running alone, like phone a friend, FaceTime a friend, like, yeah, anytime you can just like call someone, doesn't even need to be about running, just in general, like keep the positivity. And also we were talking about earlier, just knowing that like these feelings are valid, that you can be upset that a race was either canceled or your goal season doesn't look the same. And we can recognize that this is like a challenging time for everyone. And we shouldn't feel bad like about being upset, but also have compassion to people putting their lives on the line for us right now.
Yeah, so I think it's easy. Like also, you know, I was feeling a little down not being in Poland yesterday, and you start to feel a little selfish. Like, how can I feel bad about my race being canceled when, you know, there's so many people out there that are sick, and people like my brother's in the ER, like working like firsthand with these people. But I think, you know, you are still allowed to be, you know, disappointed, because running is a huge part of our life. So I think also like be easy on yourself, allow yourself to still feel all the feelings while still, again, having compassion and understanding like the magnitude of all of this right now.
Awesome. We have one more piece of listener feedback, and then we're going to wrap things up. This is from Paulo, and he says, I've run more than 100 kilometers in a trail race and many road runs of 10K, 15K half marathon. But now, sisters, you inspired me to train for my first road marathon. Good seasons. Greetings from Portugal. So,
yes, it makes us so happy.
That's from Paulo. All right, cool. We just crossed the hour mark. I want to thank everybody for listening. But first, I want to ask you guys if people want to follow you and keep in touch with the Flanagans over this course and as we build into racing season, where can people follow you and stay in touch?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. I believe it's L Flanagan too, because there's a lot of Lindsay Flanagans out there, and Twitter as well. So yeah, check it out. Stay connected. Love to kind of hear your feedback from this. And yeah, reach out if you guys have any questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter as well, and it's all at Kaflana. So
nice. And then also running the Stryd Instagram. Okay, cool. Kaylee and Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck training, racing, and everything. And I'm sure we'll have you again on in the future. You know, because you guys are rock stars on the Stryd social media network and stuff. So cool. I think that's it for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This was Stryd for the Love of Running webinar series, and we'll be back with another episode soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.